Now that the dust has settled a little on the controversial interview that former Prime Minister Datuk Seri Najib Razak conducted with Al-Jazeera, maybe it's time to take stock of what happened, make some observations, try to come to some conclusions as to why it went so badly for Najib and why things happened the way they did.
Come on, you're not being fair to me. You know, if you want to ask about the economy, what
you are facing serious charges in this country, and people.
Look, I've done my part.
Okay.
I'm not going to stand anymore. This. If you want to ask about the economy, I'll talk to you.
Firstly, I think Najib thought he could control the interview and the agenda. I think he was led to believe that the main thrust of the interview would centre on the economy and his legacy, and that was why he agreed to come on the show. He likely also tried to choose his interviewer, but was rebuffed, probably only finally agreeing to Marianne Jolly on the proviso that she stuck to those two areas. Problem was, the former PM appeared to have badly misjudged the platform. When asked about a bunch of sensitive things like the $681 million that landed in his personal account, things like the missing $4.5 billion from funds allegedly from 1MDB, things like his wife's 22-carat pink diamond, and things like the mystery surrounding the murder of Al-Jazeera Sharibu, he did not appear to have substantive answers to any of those questions, as he assumed he would stay on safe ground with the economy and his legacy. Many of his answers were preceded by, "I assume," which, judging from the social media backlash, appeared unassuring from an ex-finance and prime minister.
I assume, and I assume.
Which of course prompted more probing from Al Jazeera. All told, Najib did not seem prepared for the barrage of questions that came his way. He appeared to think that Al Jazeera would behave like the local mainstream press, which ultimately led to his walking out of the interview. Secondly, he wanted to talk about his legacy.
Given what's happened to you, let's talk about your legacy.
Okay, we'll talk about the legacy. I'm fine.
That's the last question.
We'll talk about the legacy.
But what exactly will be Najib's legacy? What exactly does the former Prime Minister want to be remembered for? Unfortunately, many of his achievements, perhaps things like the MRT or even the Tun Razak exchange, are also correlated to the mountain of debt that the country now has to pay off. Najib had also pointed out his government's stewardship of the economy faster over a period of 4 years than some of its ASEAN neighbours. But again, this was financed either by hot foreign money or government debt, and which also came at a price because it drove up living costs and ballooned government debt, which ultimately led to the introduction of GST and therefore Najib's ouster. Thirdly, he seemed a little removed from reality. When asked about the properties that his stepson Reza Aziz had bought and the movies that he bankrolled, specifically The Wolf of Wall Street,
he's always been a movie buff, even though... let me just finish it, please. He's always been a movie buff, and his ambition was really to go into the movies.
And when asked about the similarities in language in the two letters disavowing any corruption between Joe Lau's gifts of art and the donation from the Middle East, Najib said that he had assurance of support from King Abdullah, which could have been verified had the royal been alive to vouch for it. Fourth, he appeared to want to talk about the economy. And that is probably safe-ish ground for Najib, since statistically speaking, the BN government has actually done a fair job of marshalling the country's resources and managed a good rate of growth this past 9 years. But there remain problems, chief of which are the omnipresence of GLCs, which have been accused of stifling local enterprise, such as that mentioned by University Malaya Professor Terence Gomez. Fifth, Najib wanted to proclaim his innocence. But in so doing, and then by storming out of the interview saying, "No more and I'm done," whatever credibility that he might have amassed until that point dissipated as it appeared he was afraid or unable to address the issues. Issues like the murder of Mongolian model Al-Jazeera Sharibu, issues like Joe Lau and the investigations on him in 6 different countries, issues like 1MDB, and of course issues like the 2015 instruction from Najib's office to deport Marianne Jolly when she was in Malaysia to film a documentary about the murder of Al-Jazeera.
I'm being deported from Malaysia. I'm being escorted by about 5 customs agents and a man in military outfit.
When Jolly asked Najib why he deported her in 2015, Najib said the following.
Good thing we deported you. You're a nuisance. Because as far as I'm concerned, making lies, fabricating lies, is not something that we want to tolerate in this country.
Lastly, and this is an important point, were there any positives for the former Prime Minister in the wake of this interview? Some folks tweeted to suggest the possibility, saying that many Malaysians, rightly, are short of memory and long of empathy. and thus giving ammunition to a narrative that goes something like a wealthy member of a foreign country bullying an embattled and fallen former leader from a small Asian nation. All told, though, this was just a disturbing interview on all counts. It showed, in full high definition, the qualities of a person who has led this country since 2009, whatever those qualities may have been. And it also amplified, once again, the scale of this country's problems in terms of the political animal that Pakatan Harapan is facing. Most of all, it demonstrated the determination of a man who is clearly willing to fight to the last to clear his name, which unfortunately sets up the country for a long, ugly, expensive and very public legal battle at a time when the global economy is entering a new phase of stress and pressure. It's a situation which would otherwise need a huge and concerted effort to ensure that we're not overly rocked by the pressures of a worsening economic storm. And that surely cannot be good. Just saying.